Now the National Broadband Network, or the NBN, will provide an enormous amount of additional capacity to our broadband network. So the question is, do we need it? Do we need to spend all of this money to get this extra capacity? And that's what I'd like to talk about in this video. And to address this question, I'd like to ask or consider, what kind of broadband speeds are we going to need in 15 years' time? That is, it's 2012 now. What will we need in 2027? Because the networks that we build now, the decisions we make now, will determine what kind of broadband speeds we have in 15 years' time. So to address this question, what I'd like to do is to look back 15 years to see what we had then. And those of you who can remember the dial-up modem, where you dialed up, you heard the telephone numbers going out, you got a connection, which was at a rate of about 40 kilobits per second. And I'll explain data rates in the next video for those of you who are not sure. Okay, and with that data rate, you were able to send email and do kinds of browsing and various simple internet things that we did 15 years ago, sort of around 1997, about then. So if we then move forward from 15 years ago to now, the average broadband speed in Australia is 4.9 megabits per second. Okay, so that's an increase of around 100, a little bit more, but let's say an increase of around 100 for the sake of argument. So that's what's happened in the last 15 years. Okay, so, and that then enables us to do the kinds of things we do with the internet now, things like YouTube, things like Facebook, things like Skype. Okay, because the extra broadband speeds that we have, this broadband network that we have that's 100 times faster than 15 years ago, allows us to use these applications. So if we look ahead 15 years from now to 2027 and apply the same argument, then we could argue similarly that we need broadband speeds 100 times faster than they are now. So broadband speeds in Australia are about 4.9, or let's say 5 megabits per second. So in 2027, in 15 years' time, going by this argument, we'll need 5 megabits per second times 100, or 500 megabits per second as our average broadband speed. Okay, and the NBN will easily be able to support speeds like that. Okay, and this simple argument is actually based on an observation called Moore's Law, which from the 1960s has predicted technology trends fairly accurately. But let's now consider what we're going to use this capacity for. Okay, what kind of new applications will emerge over the next 15 years? And we can say, well, look, things like health delivery, education, the way we work will be transformed. New applications will emerge using perhaps high-definition video or the newer versions of it. But look, the short answer is that we don't really know. In the same way that 15 years ago, we didn't know that some genius from Harvard University called Mark Zuckerberg would invent this new service called Facebook. We didn't know that PayPal, the online payment firm, 3 of their employees would leave and start this new company called YouTube. We didn't know that a small group of programmers in Europe would create this service called Skype. So what we see is a small number of geniuses, for want of a better term, great innovators who used the capacity, the increased capacity of existing broadband to produce these new services. Services like Facebook, services like YouTube and like Skype. Services that have come in the last 15 years. So over the next 15 years, what we can be sure of is that a new set of innovators, a new set of geniuses, if you like, will come forth and will use the greatly increased capacity of networks like the NBN to produce new applications which will be perfectly obvious to us in 2027, but which we can't really predict now. Okay, but We do need to do better than that. We're spending a lot of money on this network, so we at least need to identify some industry trends which indicate we'll need far greater capacity. And I'll mention two of them. The first is that over the last 15 years, well, not the last 15 years, the last few years, many of us have bought large, big flat screen TVs. I bought one. And for the most part, these devices are not connected to the internet. Soon they will be, and they'll require far greater capacity. So that's one sort of technology trend, the large flat screen TV. The second one is cloud computing. And the idea with cloud computing is to take the processing capability from perhaps your desktop or notebook machine and put it into a warehouse somewhere, a warehouse with thousands and thousands of computers, and have them do the processing for you. Similarly, to take the storage capacity of your machine and put that in another warehouse with thousands and thousands of low-cost storage devices. So the idea is you have far greater processing capacity because it's done in the cloud, so to speak. You have far greater storage capacity because, again, your data is being stored in the cloud. Now, cloud technology is the way of the future, and it's the way of the present. It's a big deal in the industry right now. Okay, for cloud computing to work, you need a far greater broadband capacity than we currently do. And in particular, you need a far greater uplink capacity. That means the broadband speed going away from your home or away from your premises. And in the next video, I'll talk more about what uplink or upstream, as it's called, means. Okay, so for cloud computing, which is coming and which is here now, we need far greater speed with our broadband connections. And to give an example, the most common broadband technology in Australia is called ADSL2+. Now, the uplink or upstream speed, that is the speed going away from you, for ADSL2+, the maximum rate is 1 megabits per second. Okay. Now, some NBN services are out now. The highest speed NBN service has an uplink speed of 40 megabits per second, the maximum uplink speed. That is 40 times the uplink speed which most of us have. And as I said, for cloud computing in particular, much greater uplink speeds will be needed, and for other applications as well. Okay, so in this video we've had a brief look at why we need the extra capacity that the NBN will bring. And through these descriptions, I've introduced a number of terms. Many of you will be familiar with them, but many perhaps not. So in the next video, I'll define some basic terms which will help you to understand how the NBN works. I'll see you then.